there be. It is meant to be run by, folks without the whole idea of a proof of concept is that it doesn't take much effort to run them. Otherwise, they're useless. So how would you claim malicious intent in such cases?
In publishing a paper, for instance.
In publishing a paper or a proof of concept. Papers are useless, right? Code is what carries the day.
It's quite simple. There's two aspects. First, there's the whole notion of state of the art in terms of or code of conduct or practices, and those issues are recognized by courts. So if you can explain then that in the research community, this is the way that we publish papers, those are the kinds of papers of publications that are recognized by the community, I think that a judge will listen to that. And the second aspect is about documenting for the investigating officer in front of the judge the actual intent of the person who is publishing the paper. For instance, if you prove that the guy published that with the intent to damage a company, and if you can document that, if he's discussed about it with friends, for instance, and he's exchanged emails stating, hey, I'm going to really kick their asses and be sure that they're out of business, then you have, I believe, an unlawful intent in such a publication. But so if the intent of the publisher is just to make people aware of the dangers of a specific implementation, of a specific software, of a specific server, etc., of using a specific device that is sold by a company who promotes its security and so on, I guess it's an okay way of publishing. So there hasn't been very many cases of actual investigations on those situations. The objective is not to prevent people from doing that work. It's really to have a tool in situations where it's actual bad guys who are doing it, to be able to prosecute, investigate, etc. I believe it's true because now we have, I think, 5 years since that law was published, and we haven't had any big problem with it. And it comes from the Cybercrime Convention of the Council of Europe, and it's about the same article that's in it. And I don't know of any country where this specific legislation, when implemented, is a problem. But there still is a debate. I mean, if in some instances it's damaging research, it's impeding research, then people should speak out. But not speak out when the legislation is published, but speak out when it's implemented and worked out and in practice.
A question. In France, is prosecution at the discretion of the prosecutor, or do they have to prosecute if they are alerted of what could be a crime?
It's at their discretion.
I see.
They don't have to. So they can close the case. If they think there's no offense, they can close the case. Yeah. The only case where you would have a mandatory investigation is when a company files a formal complaint with well, they have to pay some money, actually, a consignation in French. And then there is an investigation that is mandatory, but the prosecution is not mandatory. Okay, so that's about legislation. It's the environment we work in every day. The actors in France, actually, it's quite simple, although it's not always understood. You have two national law enforcement agencies, the National Police and the National Gendarmerie. Police works more inside big cities, and the gendarmerie works outside big cities. Outside big cities is 95% of the territory, and it's half of the population, roughly. So it's two big forces compared to other countries. In the gendarmerie, we're 100,000, and within those 100,000, there are 60,000 investigators that cover all aspects of investigations, all aspects of crime. Then we have the customs, which is another agency which deals with custom matters, and some of their officers have judiciary investigative powers. Then you have a number of regulators. Most of them are independent bodies, such as the CNIL, which is our data protection agency. And the CNIL has investigative powers and can pronounce fines against companies who are not applying the data protection legislation properly. Google was recently fined by 100,000 euros for Street View, the collection of data. Adopi is another example. It raises a huge debate in France. I'm not going to go into any details, but it's about intellectual property protection and a three-stage process where people are first warned that it's bad to share counterfeit work on the internet, and at the end, in theory, they could go in front of a judge and ask for the internet connection of the persons be cut. It's a recent institution, and it's difficult to make a final to have a final view on their results. Another recent organization that is interesting is called ARGEL. It's the regulatory authority for online gaming, and the idea is first to deliver licenses for companies who want to offer services of online gaming and online betting in France to French customers, and to investigate with us those circumstances where illegal gambling is going on. It was created last year, and the results are already interesting. I could talk about it, but it's not the subject of the speech today. Another example of organizations. This one is not an independent body. It's more a forum. It's in English you would call it a payment card security council. The idea is to put around the table representatives of the government, of the banks, of the credit card schemes, of the consumers, and of the merchants. Everybody is around the table. We meet regularly, and we evaluate the security of payment cards and try to see if there's a way to detect what's going wrong in the payment systems, in the payment solutions that are offered, looking at statistics, to see at all the technical implementations, discuss on the PCI DSS, etc., for instance, and give advice or give recommendations to banks, to card payment schemes, and to merchants about how they should implement proper security in payment cards. It's a very interesting way of doing it. Everybody's around the table, all the actors. There are some independent experts also who are invited to the table, and it's been quite interesting to work in that group. There are many other instances of regulators, but I'm not going to quote them all. In France, we have also a number of initiatives which are of interest. We have AFSIN, which is a French-speaking organization for digital investigators, from magistrates to law enforcement to private experts and academy. We have an anti-spam organization that is about collecting spam into a database and warning ISPs that they are sending spams, that their customers are sending spams, for instance, from botnets, and to warn mailing companies that their mechanisms are not working properly because a lot of people are complaining about receiving mails from them. And that's an interesting project, and it's been running since 2003, and it's getting more and more interest. Then we have TwoCenter, which is a training, research, and education initiative that is starting in France and Ireland around a partnership between universities and law enforcement and the industry to work on training programs for law enforcement as well as the industry to better fight against cybercrime. Mainly forensic investigations, but other types of tools and methods are in our focus. So that's the actors in France. Any question about that? No? I'm already boring Sébastien in the back. Okay. In the gendarmerie, quickly, this is the situation. We have 220 specialized investigators all over the country. They were trained at a national level, and today their training is an accredited bachelor degree with a university. So it's a joint program with a university and our training center. And our objective is to have 250 of those specialized investigators. And then we have local correspondents who are trained by the specialized investigators. So remember, the force is 100,000. We have 60,000 investigators in all domains. And the objective of those people is to cover all aspects of all forensic aspects, investigating on hard drives, on mobile phones, etc., in all kinds of investigations, not only on cybercrime, but whenever a crime encounters digital evidence. So it's an important task, and it's a huge effort for a law enforcement force. At a central level, we have two main units. One is part of our forensic laboratory, our National Forensic Laboratory, in Rosny-sous-Bois, and it's an IT forensics department. Now the team is 17, and they try to be at the forefront of forensic work, developing methods for the local investigators, developing methods to deal with difficult situations when a hard drive is damaged, for instance, being able to desolder chips from mobile phones to access erased data, and so on. Then there's my unit, which I'm going to describe here. So the Cybercrime Division. We're 21 today, and our main mission is to do a proactive work on the internet. That is detecting infractions, illegal actions on the internet, and starting the investigations before giving the